Although in most of the world infectious diseases have declined in the past few years, they are still a major problem in Africa. We're particularly concerned about diarrheal diseases, pneumonia and malaria. They are really responsible together for probably about half of all the deaths in children in the developing world, and particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Presently, infectious diseases are still causing a great deal of mortality and morbidity, and research needs to continue.
So we remove the spleen, start the hydroxyurea, and then you're saying that there's the issue of infections with the pneumococcal vaccine.
If you're living in that environment where infectious diseases, you may have seen one of your children die from malaria or somebody die from meningitis. This is very real to people living in that community.
Our cousins had sickle cell anemia. The youngest one of them had the very severe form, and he died when he was around 16. That personal experience, it's just made me a lot more determined. The burden of sickle cell disease in Africa is huge. In high-income countries, they've been able to reduce mortality by almost 90%, whereas in our setting, the mortality is extremely high.
During the rainy season, if you go really to any healthcare here, you will see a lot of kids really outside there suffering from malaria. They have to take the kids to the hospital, they're losing their time, losing money, and then on top of that, the life of the kid also is at risk. And this makes it really very big problem all over Africa.
In this country, if a child comes in with Salmonella bacteremia, unless they're treated very, very quickly, they will die, and 30% of them die, regardless of treatment given, because sometimes it's too late.
Research in Africa is absolutely essential if we are to deal with the major infectious diseases. The Royal Society Pfizer Award is recognising good scientists in whichever topic they're working.
It's estimated that between 50 to 90% of children die in childhood because of sickle cell anemia.
The number of people who are dying from malaria are unfortunately rising in Africa because malaria parasite has become resistant to the inexpensive drugs that were used to fight it in the past.
My research is focused on insecticide resistance to better control malaria, and then mosquito ecology and behavioral studies, including mosquito mating behavior.
People who are heavily exposed to malaria gradually become immune. My studies aim to help develop effective vaccines for malaria.
Pneumococci happen to be the commonest cause of infection, particularly in children under 5 years of age. Pneumonia, which is infection of the lungs, septicemia, infection of the blood, and from the blood it can also get to the brain to cause meningitis.
When I was growing up, I would watch kids die of malaria. My motivation all along has always been to study malaria and get to the depth of this disease.
About 500,000 people die annually from visceral leishmaniasis. The disease caused massive deaths in 1990s in southern Sudan.
We've been looking at a disease caused by non-typhoidal salmonella. In this country, they cause sepsis or bacteremia, which is a bloodborne infection. It's especially a severe disease in children under 5 years of age.
The disease is transmitted by the tsetse fly. They go into coma and never wake up. It is 100% fatal unless treated.
We still have an enormous burden of communicable disease here. We are poised in a new era. How we bring everything we've learned about HIV, TB, malaria together.
Our work is primarily focused on understanding the mechanisms by which malaria parasites invade red cells. This is a critical part of the malaria disease process.
Developing research and scientists in Africa is absolutely key for the future. I mean, the whole process is becoming much more Afrocentric, and that's right, because that's where the problems are. It should be the African scientists who are dealing with those. And what we really want to see is independent thinking African scientists who are developing their own research agenda, seeing what are the problems for their country.
If Africa is to develop, we must find a way of keeping our finest brain in Africa. We need minimum fundings that will enable us to do internationally recognized science, and that will allow us to have the same opportunities that one would have in the West.
I will set up a molecular biology lab specifically for training African scientists. This way we will increase the number of scientists that can actually carry out effective research in infectious diseases.
This Pfizer Prize is really going to help us increasing human capacity, particularly in our congenomics, because we intend to utilize part of the funds to attach some of our postgraduate students at the Sanger Institute. They will be exposed to routine work on genomics, sequencing, and bioinformatics so that they can be able to acquire these skills with a view to expanding our capacity, particularly in understanding how whole genome sequencing is going to affect our work in the future.
This award is going to help me to acquire new equipment, but most importantly, to build on human capacity, which is really critical for the kind of work that I'm doing. And we really want to make sure that any tools that we have in hand are going to be readily accepted by the community. The data that we're really going to collect from this award will help us to tackle malaria.
The purpose of this award was to encourage some of the younger ones and give them international recognition that they might not be getting in their own country. When we spoke to some of the awardees recently by Skype, the award had really opened some other doors for them.
This award has been instrumental to make myself really known to the wider community. Malaria will never be defeated if African institutes are not empowered, and the award is helping us to do that. We have built, a malaria sphere to investigate ecological behavior of mosquitoes. So the money, it helps also, to refurbish a little bit this sphere so that we can keep working inside.
Scientifically, it was a validation of my work. It was also a stimulation for me to do more work, as well as the younger ones to aspire. I was able to use it to give it to an MSc student, a young Gambian lady, young scientist. And she's the one that is running most of the lab work and as well as the field work.
Since the Royal Society Award, there has been increasing emphasis actually on HIV prevention. The national and international recognition has been extraordinarily important. I am now the president-elect of the International AIDS Society. I'm the first African woman who will actually hold that post.
The award helped us support an intern who worked with us for 8 months, screening adults from their blood samples to assess whether they could clear parasites or not.
Winning of the award made a huge change in my life. I was able to expand the laboratory and mentor additional students. The university recognized the fact that I was active in research. I got promoted to professor based on those recognitions.
This is one of the greatest moments really in one's life as a scientist, to know that the kind of work that you're doing for the community, they're really seeing the benefit. They're really very happy about it. This gives us strength really to keep doing the way we're doing it.
This prize particularly gives us some level of publicity to be able to bring out the importance of certain elements of disease like salmonellosis.
Awards such as the Royal Society Pfizer Award will send a message that it is possible for African scientists to do good science in Africa and that this science will be recognized.
It's very reassuring that my work is being appreciated, and it's going to go a long way in encouraging me and even to work harder.
There has been a big development, and I think it makes sense. If you're tackling problems that are primarily an African problem, you want the scientists who know the community or know how to work with people to be playing a key part in that.